Good morning. Kevin Mullet coming at you on a Monday. Today is May 23rd. I was not expecting to come to you today. However, there is a burning issue that has been going on for quite some time in the social media world, and I apparently can avoid saying something about it no longer. So, well, I suppose I could. I could just hit stop and not say anything about it, but I'm going to anyway. Social media expert, the word. Can we use that word or can't we? And certainly, I'm not going to be the definitive answer on this, but since I seem to be one of the sole dissenting opinions on it, then I guess I'm coming to you today. And this is an informal thing. I really haven't planned anything other than putting down some key points that I have thought of in the past. So here's the deal. I believe that the term social media expert has been both overused and over-vilified. And I've been on record for saying that for at least a solid year. I could probably go back and find that in materials or presentations that I've given, whatever, for whatever that's worth. And it's just that. I think that this whole rhetoric is adolescent at best and is just, it's ridiculous. I mean, it's just time to grow up and get over this. It's a word. And I know that that's going to really ruffle some feathers, and that's why I've avoided it all this time, because quite frankly, I don't like controversy. I don't think it's helpful to anybody. And I don't think that this particular topic is going to stop anybody from using the term when there's money on the line, and I don't think it's going to stop bad people from duping other people who don't know better into using services that they probably shouldn't. So what it sounds like is a bunch of, chirping back and forth and people pointing fingers and saying this person shouldn't be allowed to use this word. So overused, yes. Certainly, there are a lot of people out there using the term social media expert that have no business whatsoever utilizing that. But by its very nature, for me to say that means that I feel that I am in a place that I can render judgment. That's the first part of the problem of all of this rhetoric that's going around about social media expert, is because the minute that somebody tries to call somebody else out for being a social media expert, my gut reaction, and this is an opinion, my gut reaction is that that person is upset because the other person's using a term that they can't use or won't use, and the other person's using it, and they're casting judgment as to whether or not that person should be allowed to or not. And the only reason that they would be able to cast judgment would be if they think they themselves are. Okay? Well, maybe not. Maybe if you've seen somebody who called themselves a BMX bicycle expert and all they did was fall down over the jumps, maybe you would be able to make the designation that they weren't, but I think you see my point. My second thing is the definition of the word doesn't mean finished learning. It doesn't mean best. It doesn't mean better than everybody else. It just means having expertise in, having experience in. And I invite you to go look up the word, because apparently there's a lot of people that are putting the word out there and into a meaning that it does not have. And so, again, just go look up the definition of the word. It does not mean the best. It doesn't mean finished learning. It doesn't mean better than everybody else. We just have some terminology problems there. And killing off the usage of it, again, I don't think has any bearing whatsoever on whether or not the people who are nefariously trying to get business in that field are going to stop using it. I mean, that's not the word isn't the problem. And so everybody who actually might fit that, while I'm not advocating people calling themselves that, if they do fit that, then basically they can't use the term. We've already had to have, conversations with our copywriters here just to strike the word out of anything that we put, because, some other pseudo expert or who thinks they are an expert might call us out on it. Is that helping the marketing industry out as a whole? Social media expert does not by its very nature mean that that's the only thing that they sell. It doesn't mean that that's the only type of service that they provide. What about social media specialist? I'll get to that in a second. Okay, so number three is there's no official body. We don't have an official group body, a standardized test, or something that says this is what you have to be a social media expert. And in fact, we shun in our type of a world, the web world, from way back in the web design days, we shun that type of thing anyway. We don't want to have an organization body. And usually what had happened in the past is somebody would say we're a web design criteria or group, and somebody would say, well, I don't like your rules, so I'm going to create my own. So there is no official body for that. So who's making the designation of whether somebody can be a social media expert or not? And okay, so there's all of these people who say, well, you should never refer to yourself as that. And I actually kind of buy into that. I don't have a problem with that. But that doesn't mean that we vilify those who do. And that certainly shouldn't mean that people who have been called that then cannot use that moniker. Even though, again, myself, I don't, because, well, frankly, I don't think anybody has a 100% expertise in this. Although there's a lot of people who certainly do have experience doing it and could probably fly the flag just fine. Anyway, okay, so, and the other problem is that a lot of these social media experts or naysayers of experts run in packs. And so you have all this beep, 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 they're chirping back and forth about how this person all of a sudden called themselves an expert. And again, I think it's just so childish, and you're catching me on a grumpy morning anyway. So, all right. So number four is to say that others do not deserve that is, basically because you believe that you are. And here's the funny thing about that is then those people have no problem writing articles on their websites utilizing those keyword phrases and those terms so that they show up. That's one of the reasons I've avoided it. Because, obviously I could SEO an article in there and make it look like I was trying not to use it, but it's in there. And I probably have used it in there somewhere because it's very difficult to avoid using. But, yeah, so there's that then. And Peter Shankman just did a bit on it. I respect Peter. I respect a lot of the people who are saying this. Scott Howard, who's a friend of mine, said this. Anthony Giuliano, who's a friend of mine and I respect, said this. It's just, I have a different opinion on it, and I'm sharing it with you. And you may agree or disagree and lambaste me otherwise, and that's fine. So the assertion of something does not make it real. Well, if that was the case, then I would, make some assertion that I'm a millionaire, and there you go, I would have it. The funny thing about this whole deal is that for those of us that have been in this business for a long time, we went through this exact same thing. And as a matter of fact, it's still going on today. Back in the late 1990s, early 2000s, everybody and their brother was a web designer. Everybody and their brother knew how to get you online and are still doing it today. And the problem is they create crap solutions that don't do what the client needs it to do. They get all fancy. They worry about, you get all these agencies out there that want to, it's got to look beautiful. It's got to look beautiful. And then it can't be found in the search engines. So when we want to talk about social media experts, well, then we also have to talk about agencies that say that they do web development that provide no value to the end client because they can't be found on the internet, which is a problem, which don't have tracking codes in them, which don't have baseline search engine optimization in it. Okay, so what about that? Do we vilify the word web designer or web developer? What about web developers who do it out of their garage? I know people who do it out of their garage that are better than some web development companies. Okay, I know some web development companies that are clearly better than people that do it out of their garage. Where does all the tic-tac, stop? That's a problem I have with this. It's ridiculous. So anyway, okay, so the assertion doesn't make it real. What about thought leaders? We've seen that term thrown around here for a long time. It's ridiculous. How do you prove that you're a thought leader? That's another one that's a non-provable state. Okay, and we talk about web designer. Okay, so not limited to this term, obviously. Like I just said about web designers, there are a few other ones. There's an argument that says, listen, okay, if somebody has put in X amount of hours, then they can use the designation. Okay, that's not the real understanding of that. I can't even think of the guy's name, but the guy that did this study, somebody else will correct me on this. But the point is hours isn't a designation for this. People learn at a different rate. People have different clients, different types of clients designate whether or not it'll be usable or not. It's too fractured to fit into that kind of into a mold. Okay, study or practice or a little bit of both. What about authors? Okay, so moving on to another point. Who gets to use this? Should an author? Should an author who's done hundreds of hours worth of research but no practical application, should they be able to use this term? What about somebody who's just done all study but they've never actually implemented it? What about somebody who's done all practice but no study? So they're going around saying that social media is new, even though it's been going on since at least bulletin board days. So, I have to chuckle every time I hear somebody say social media is new. I mean, it's patently absurd to me, but other people seem to think that it's fine. So, what about whether or not there was a client involved? Did the client basically, how much did they buy in? I mean, even web designers and other agencies have to deal with this with creative. How much will the client let you do? Will they take the path that you want to do, and what's the available resources? Maybe they're not paying for you to do it permanently for them. Maybe they're just getting the setup and then they have to go through with it. So if it fails, is it because the person that created the situation, or was it that the client didn't follow through? Anyway, so again, we're back to social media specialists. I keep thinking of that term because that term to mean simply, if you look up the word again, simply means that they are specializing on that. They're not an expert in it. They're not claiming to have a certain degree of knowledge in it. They're just specializing in it. That's what they're going to focus in on, which I believe most of the people who know me understand that I don't think that you can have an effective marketing campaign that solely uses social media. I think, as with most marketing campaigns, one thing might be hotter than the other depending on how it's implemented. Something might provide more value than others, but I don't want to see clients solely rely on social media or brochures or business cards or direct mail or email campaigns or this, that, and the other thing. I want them to have a healthy mix and figure out how to make it work together. So anyway, it's not a quick video to listen to, and there's a lot of bit of rambling in there because I didn't anticipate doing it today, but those are just some thoughts that I've had over the past ever since this adolescent argument has gone on. And I'm sorry if people feel that that's a derogatory way of saying it, but really, folks, get over it. It's a term. It's not going to stop people from using it. It's not going to stop people from hiring those who are not in the know and who are not connecting the dots. And so, again, I'm over it. I'm just sick to death of hearing about it because it's a fruitless conversation, in my opinion. And so now there's my opinion on it, and you can take it for whatever it's worth. It is my opinion on it, and there you go. Have a great day.